Hello Tubesters, it's Gav. Welcome to another one of my videos. I have shot this once and shot the rest of the video, and for some reason this bit didn't load up. You're not escaping. You've got to have an intro. Yeah, just to say, this is a look at 4 painted figures and 4 raw figures, as I would call them. So 4 mounted figures that haven't been painted yet, and it's like an unboxing. They're all 28mm 30-year war resin figures from Avon Post, and I am painting these as a commission for Mez at Mezza's Minis, who is the importer of these figures. Now, so let's just get that out of the way. You already should know this because I've already put it on another video. However, I'm also a customer of Mezza's Minis, and as I've joked around before, he'll probably be getting all his money back from the commission in future figure sales to me. So yeah, again, views are my own. Mez has not asked me to put up any of these videos. I'm just doing them. They're part of the commission. He happens to be a commercial client, but I would do them. I always ask the client first. Well, obviously, as a commercial client, he's going to say, yeah, no problem. But most of my private clients, is very, very rarely. I think I've had 2 in 5 years. That have said, well, no, I prefer not to be put up on a video. So yeah, the views are my own. I am a customer, so I've bought figures off them, resin figures and metal before. So just watch the video if you like, and just decide if you like the figures or not. So apologise if I won't know until I've loaded this last little bit up if the lighting's any good, because I've taken my other 2 lights down now. But yeah, I just thought I'd better shoot an intro. More just to say as well that I am painting these as a paid commission painter, which is my day job. Look after yourselves. I'll probably say this on the end part of the video, but look after yourselves. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see each other again soon on another video. Right guys, thanks for joining me at the bench. Let me just move. I've got blooming mounted figures all over the place. Right, Mez is basing these himself. He sent me some 2p pieces out of his own piggy bank, and they're just obviously stuck down, and he'll sort them out in his own good time when he finally gets them, which could be a while yet. We've got our musketeer figure here. I'm doing them, as I say, in a Spanish Low Countries type vibe going on. Not all reds, but obviously especially the officers or hat bands and feathers. I at least put at least 1 red feather in and a red hat band a lot of the time, just to show a Spanish feel. Again, cracking figures, really enjoy them. Painted in non-metallic metal. So again, any guys that don't understand that, it just means that you, rather than painting metallic paint to show like the sword hilt there and the musket barrel, you try and affect it by using different colours of paint rather than metallics. Basically, you're trying to create deep shadow and highlights. I may start painting my historical figures with a bit more fantasy style non-metallic metal in places. We shall see. Obviously I don't want to do it on these figures because I've already started them, and I don't particularly want to change them halfway through. And when I say fantasy style, they're not going to look overly fantasized. It just to bring them up. I've been learning non-metallic metal a bit better, and I'd like to probably incorporate that in figures. I have introduced them slightly to these, which I'll show in a second. Not so much these, because they are musket barrels and rests and stuff. Come on, concentrate, camera. I've kept these in fairly muted tones colour wise, because they are foot soldiers. Their clothes wouldn't be maybe as good as the more expensive clothes of the officers. I've use some stippling on some of the uniforms. Sometimes you'll see a jacket stippled, sometimes not, sometimes trousers stippled, sometimes not. I'm just trying to break up things. The highlights are subtle on these, so they don't show as much. But yeah, it's they're really nice figures, and I'm not just saying that. As I say, I bought them myself before, you know, Mez got in contact with me, and I would have. These are resin, by the way, if I haven't said. I've tried to pick out trousers and jackets and things that I've seen reenactors using. These ones I've highlighted slightly more with a couple of fantasy colours. I've thrown in some gold yellow, some green yellow, and some what they call ice yellow. I haven't got ice yellow, but all it is really a tiny amount of yellow into white. I will buy an ice yellow. It's just easier sometimes to have these in bottles rather than having to keep mixing them. But the Spanish painters were saying, you know, the luminosity of the yellow white compared to just doing plain white, which I was using, and I like that idea, and it does give a luminosity to the metal. And I did do it in this helmet here, and I will do it on some of the others, but I didn't want to push it too far against stuff I've already painted. So right guys, terribly sorry about that. Yes, Gav should have turned his phone sound off. Right, where the heck we were? About 15 minutes has passed. That was my wife. Right, yeah. So I've gone for the more luminosity, as I would call it, rather than just a stark white. So if you are doing this type of thing, maybe try it yourself. But I will be painting it on one of these mounted figures. So you know, if you haven't a clue what I'm on about, or hopefully all will become clear. Again, subdued colours. There are highlights on there, but I've specifically kept the jacket darker. Yeah, I just really like these figures. I think you know, pose wise, they're very nice, and I haven't had the only. I think this one's a one-piece cast. The only time that I have, and it's not even a problem really, when you do, you know, when you putting figures together or painting and whatever, is, as I said to you guys, on some of the resin, and it's repeated in the metal, obviously. I suppose they're taken from the same, I don't know how they do it, but the same poses, obviously. So is some of the, where you have like a lug to go into, like an arm socket into the torso, you will sometimes have a bit of infill around that lug, which you'll have to pare away with your scalpel or whatever sharp implement you need to use. But that's the only thing that I've got a problem with them. A couple of them you may need to fill very slight gaps in arm joints with a bit of plastic putty. Again, I'll show you. This is what I roughly use. I've got other putties that I sometimes use, but for a quick dash, I use that plastic putty from Vallejo. Yeah, but even then, sometimes because of the nature of the clothes that they wore in those days, quite often there would be if not a gap, the way the arm attached to the rest of the jacket would often leave quite a deep groove, and sometimes you can get away with just because of that reason. Again, I try and mix all the different leathers up of different types, you know. It could have been easy to go for black boots there, but it looked a bit too uniformy. You know, these guys, even the wealthy ones, they didn't necessarily buy a set of boots with us to match everything else. So yeah. Right, let's have a look at these other figures. Right, guys, or if there is only one of you watching this video, I don't blame you. I wouldn't be watching it either. The production costs here are lousy. Right, or values I should say. We've got our lobster pot here. He does have which I'll show you in a minute, a visor. I just think again, look, that's a really decent fit. Now, there's an argument to say, oh, I can't be bothered to do pistols, and although that, I mean, you can see that's a really a decent fit there for the pistol holsters to go into. There's an argument for saying, oh, I don't want to be cutting these off the casting plugs. Then I've got to obviously fit them, the tails separate, which in one sense is good because you can. It doesn't seem a lot, but you can at least always pose them, slightly different ways, and that's a really good fit as well. Here's the visor for his lobster pot. So I probably will have on this one, maybe have it actually posed up. We've got our carbines and sword, and I imagine that bust off piece is where the visor was. But yeah, you could say, well, I don't want to do all this work for a war game, for having to do a lot of them for wargaming. In resin I'm talking about, because they do metal figures. So, if you're into your metals, you wouldn't have to do any of this, obviously. Although I do believe I've got some of the Napoleonics, and they still require you to stick metal parts on. It's an acquired thing, an acquired taste. It's up to you whether you can get on with it or not. But I do think, I keep doing this, moving it to the camera rather than getting the camera to do the work. I mean, that's a really, really nice figure. Facially, they're not busted here. The reins, come on, show it. Somewhere on here I saw some reins. There we go. We've got some reins in his hand here, so that hand, you will have to, obviously in that case, dry fit everything first. Bearing in mind you're using super glue on this is resin. You can, I don't actually have, something I've got to get in actually, which is some of that very slightly, I've already got Zappa. I use, no, it's not here. I use a contact type of thing that makes the CA glue, the super glue go off really instantaneously. But it might be wise on something like this, which I don't have, I must admit, is some slow acting super glue just to position things like hands into reins. But I prefer, my super glue of choice for figures is the Gorilla super glue gel, which tends to not only fill small gaps straight away, but it also does give you that bit of time just to put things in place. But then I always just put a bit of this stuff on that makes it go off straight away. I can't even think of the word for it, but yeah, that's our first guy. As you can see, everything's ready to take the your arms and whatever other bits and pieces they've got. Right, guys, second figure out. We're looking at a soft hat on this one. Again, horse looks decently detailed. Again, even the strapping and that, because it's resin and that, how well it comes out. Let's just plonk him on and see if he fits decently. He does. Yep, nice one. Sorry about the blurriness. Again, lovely. All the different straps and that. The buckles are always really nicely done, and the apostles as well. These cartridge tubes. Powder tubes, what are you going to call them? Very nice. Quite often they would wear a steel pot underneath these soft caps. They weren't always just soft caps. Quite often they'd have a steel pot underneath just to try and deflect a sword cut. Musket, I'm afraid, is a bit droopy fishing rod type thing. I have slightly, it was a bit worse than that, I've slightly straightened that. Obviously it's returning back to its old form. Hopefully a bit of hot water will straighten that out a bit more. That's the only, now this is actually, I believe, the only musket so far I've had that's, I've had a sword that I've ended up cutting off, which was this guy here. I did cut that sword off. I did ask Mez originally, what did he want me to do? And he said, well, I'll leave it up to you. So I cut it off and put some plastic card on instead, because that really was deformed. This one, it might be savable, it might not, but at the same time, a bit of plastic card for a saw blade is one thing, but yes, I could try and replace it with some wire, but then you've got all obviously the look of the musket itself, which I'd never be able to replicate. So it'll be straightened as best it can, and then it'll just have to be what it is. But again, you can see how detailed everything is. It really is nice. We're going to bust it off. The one thing I will say, obviously, with the resin as well, really be careful with the bags that you're not throwing away bits that have broken off that you'll need to stick on your figure, like that little visor for the previous figure. I mean, that was loose, so just let's take that off a second. Let's see if this guy will fit. Probably won't, because it's on camera, and I've got great big sausage fingers. Come on, Gav. Don't help that this right hand's injured, and I can't move around bits. There's Gav's scar, his Zorro scar. I had a piece of tree go through my hand and up into my fingers, and although I carried on working over the years with it, trying to climb trees with 10mm climbing ropes when you've got a hand that's only 70% effective is not always the easiest. Right, there we go. So they do fit really nicely. There's no need normally for any filling. So that's that one. Again, we've got our tail, and let's back this out a bit. It's starting to blur a bit. There we go. And we have our sword again. I say these swords, to be honest with you, I've not had any of these bend either. It was just the one that was actually, in the actual, it would have to be actually pulled out, walking forward with it, and obviously this musket so far. So the ones that I've bought, plus these ones that I'm painting full mez, that's not too bad for resin figures, because whether it's 75mm resin figures or these guys, that is, when you come to the thinner parts, that can be your Achilles heel, I suppose, of resin. But bear in mind, as I say, they sell these all in metal as well. So if you don't want resin figures, I just happen to like these. I think you have a slightly more edge on the detail than you do on metal figures. But as I say, some people are dead against wargaming with resin figures just for the fragility. I still think they're worth a go, to wargame with, but you could just as easily use these for display figures, for one-off display figures, or for vignettes or dioramas. Our third mounted figure, this guy, by the way, obviously again, really nice fit again. Even to the actual size of the horse, sometimes, as we all know, sometimes whether it's plastic, metal or resin, sometimes legs are slightly sprayed out, and especially on a standing horse you'd wonder why, but no, these, I think these fit really nicely. So that's our horse. We've seen all them. This guy, he's got his nasal helm, whatever you want to call it, actually already all moulded on, and again, buckle work is brilliant. So the tie-offs, do this guy in a buff coat, even to the little rivets or whatever you can call it, holding on the lobster pot there. And these guys look all intact, nice and straight. And let's see the all-important sword, a slight bend on the sword again. I'll have to see if that will straighten out better. As I say, that is your one drawback with resin. I mean, even metal, as we know, white metal can bend, and even you can never sometimes get it back to how you'd like it. But I mean, that's not as bad as the one. As I say, that one with the green soldier that I painted, he was, that was really unredeemable, really. but that guy might be alright. So yeah, we'll probably do him in a buff jacket. As I say, one of these guys in the not that there's a lot of metal on them, to be honest with you, but got the gorget, round the throat normally, and or around the chest, the top of the chest area, and you've got the steel pot. So there's not really a lot of metal work on show really, but we'll probably do one of those as the paint along. Right, we've got our last horse. This one's already got a tail intact. Again, gap for the reins. Nice pose. I do like that. I'll tell you what, if Avon Post ever did any Old West figures, whether it's gunfighters and stuff like that, cowboys or US cavalry, Native Americans, I think they'd be onto a winner. Alright, it's probably only going to be me that's going to buy them, but they've got a cracking designer, whoever does all these. Really nice. Again, nice positioning again. There's a slight, what's that there? That's going to be cleared off. But again, in all the ones I've had genuinely so far, that's the first hat that I've seen with any form of flash on it. I've just knocked off the carbine, which is straight. Sword again straight. Yeah, really nice. See the gauntlets and everything on there. So that is our look so far at the Mezza's Minis Avon Post 28mm 30-year war figures. I just say I've got these 4 mounted ones to do next. One will be actually a paint along, and I've got another 4 to 6 foot figures as well to do as well, from pikemen again to maybe some musketeers, I believe, as well. So please look in again. As I say, it's I know my videos aren't brilliant, and there's a bloody phone playing away in the background there, but I do like to show the things off when I've got them. So yeah, so here we go. We've got another 4 completed after how many weeks, and I'll get on to cleaning these up and priming them up, along with some other figures I've got to do. The 18mm Napoleonic commission from a client that I'm working for at the moment. I've got 2 mounted officers to do, and one to slot into a unit that I've painted and is waiting to be based, and I'm halfway through the other unit, so we're not far from showing another 2 units off for that commission, and then there's only another 4 to go, which are Old Guard Grenadiers. But yeah, so that's that. The paint along figure, the 1680s 90s gunner, Williamite gunner. I just need. He's all sanded and the base has got rocks on and everything. I just need to paint the base so I can then show you to stick the. Well, I don't need to show you to stick tufts on, but just round it up really. Show the figure off one last time with a bit of greenery on it and that. And I've also, another video, as I say, is one I'm hoping to do tomorrow, which will be paint along of an Old West, Wild West, stroke Wild West figure. We'll get him done hopefully tomorrow. And then I've also probably got another 1 in 35 scale Sherman tank video coming up probably over the weekend. You never know. So look after yourselves, guys. Thanks for taking the time to, stop by and at least, see what Gav's doing, even if you're not watching the entire video. I don't blame you. And we'll catch each other very soon on another one.